people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that unbeaten up-and-comer from right here in the US of A, Makiah Kreps, will be returning to action in the fall, early October, against an opponent that has yet to be announced. Makiah Kreps has been quietly developing in the background of this division.
The super bantamweight division.
Super bantamweight, that's where Eli Scottney reigns as a unified champion. Yemi Mercado of Mexico still reigns as WBC champion. The WBA title, that's up for grabs. That's been vacated as a result of Erica Cruz testing positive for a banned substance or banned substances. But this is where Makiah Kreps campaigns. She'll be returning to action.
28 years old.
In a super bantamweight contest scheduled for 8 rounds. Sporting a professional record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 3 knockouts. Very talented fighter that does a lot of things well, though still not getting the attention that some other fighters are getting. Perhaps it's a gift and a curse that she's been quietly developing in the background, keeping a steady schedule of activity in spite of not boxing on a major platform like a DAZN or an ESPN. She is staying active. She is keeping busy.
What's the gift?
That because she doesn't have a major promoter behind her and because she's not boxing on a major platform, there's not a lot of pressure. She's allowed to develop at her own pace.
Then what's the curse?
That because she's not boxing on a major platform, she's not really getting that big promotional push. She can't be making but so much money from boxing at this time at 8-0. She fought three times in 2022, 2 times in 2023, and she's already seen action once this year back in May against Melissa Odessa.
A very good fighter.
Both very good fighters, Melissa Odessa and Makiah Kreps. Makiah is best described as a boxer-puncher with a very balanced approach, whether she's hanging back and staying behind her jab or stepping into it, letting punches go mid-range to inside. You see the quality of her work, the shortness of her punches, and how defensible they are.
Very neat and tidy.
She seems to be able to play the aggressor and the defender equally well. Fluid in the pocket, fluid mid-range to inside, short hooks, uppercuts, body shots.
Very comfortable at that proximity.
Strong, too. She lands with authority. She's got power. She can get respect.
She's good at a lot of things.
The names that stand out on Makiah Kreps' resume, the name of India Smith, the name of Melissa Odessa Parker, that she's already fought some very solid fighters, some solid names that perhaps most people aren't familiar with.
But those are solid names, very solid for a fighter with only 8 professional bouts.
I see a champion in Makiah Kreps. I see a champion in the making, a fighter who could easily become a champion at 122, 126, maybe as high as 130.
I think that would be her ceiling because Makiah is not a very long and limber fighter. She's not very big.
More pocket-sized, good physical dimensions for 122 and 126. I think she would be pushing it at 130, though she's very good, talented enough that I could see her under the right circumstances, winning a title there. And she's only 28 years old, so she's still young. Many good years left to give to the sport of boxing. She hasn't even really made a splash yet.
I don't think we've seen the best of Makiah Kreps. Far from it.
I feel like the best is yet to come. For now, she's going to be returning to action October 4th at the Seneca Niagara Falls Resort and Casino against an opponent that has yet to be announced. And
I mean, so far, so good.
In terms of development, this will be her second fight of this year. She's keeping active, she's keeping busy, she's looking the part fight by fight. What more could you ask for?
Look for the ring return of Makiah Kreps this fall.
And we'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, yesterday we saw unbeaten up-and-comer in the men's super middleweight division, Christian Mbilli, take on seasoned veteran Sergey Derevyanchenko, a guy who's been in there with anyone from Daniel Jacobs to Gennady Golovkin to Jermall Charlo to Carlos Adames to Jaime Munguia in more recent years. And yesterday, he was in there with Christian Mbilli, and I have to say that Sergey stayed in character in a way that I didn't expect him to. Oh, Christian Mbilli stayed in character too.
He was just as aggressive and explosive and prolific within a round as you expect him to be, but Sergey was able to put up a fight. That's how he was able to stay in character. What's consistent with a Sergey Derevyanchenko fight is he's gonna make you work.
He's not an easy out. Initially, I expected Christian Mbilli to be the first to stop him, to be the first to knock him out, and he didn't.
I was surprised.
The reason for it is Sergey Derevyanchenko was alternating from offense to defense. At the start of the match, you saw he was hanging back, staying on the perimeter, as Christian Mbilli tried to close the distance the way he normally does.
Christian did a good job of that, keeping the pressure on Sergey.
In turn, Sergey did a good job of sidling, staying on the perimeter of the ring, trying to create distance between himself and Christian. And as Christian was trying to come on and trying to overpower him, overwhelm him, like he does everybody else, Sergey did a great job of fighting him off, interrupting his rhythm.
His offense.
Disrupting him as Christian Mbilli would try to string punches together, wear the guy down. Sergey would get through with short punches, short hooks in between, short jabs.
Just interrupting a guy.
Slowing him down a bit, fighting him off a bit.
Just interrupting a guy.
Showing a fantastic chin, fantastic punch resistance while he did it, because Sergey Derevyanchenko was on the receiving end of many chopping right hands from Christian Mbilli, and they hurt him. You could see that they hurt him, but he weathered the storm, took the punches well, never went down, didn't go out, and finished the fight on his feet.
It's just stubborn.
He's just a very stubborn and durable fighter, because Christian Mbilli did get in with a lot of punches, a lot of chopping rights, body shots.
As he's going to land head punches, Sergey Derevyanchenko is angling off, bending at the waist and knees, trying to roll and ride the punches to not get hit on the head, so Christian starts going to his body.
Was right to do it, as Sergey Derevyanchenko was moving around quite a bit. If you're in there with a mover, guy who wants to use the ring, you got to take his legs away. The way you do that is you go to the body. Christian went to the body.
It looked like something was wrong with Sergey's left hand after the midway point.
I don't know if it was his left hand, maybe his elbow or his left arm. I don't know what it was, but there did appear to be something wrong with Sergey's left side, his left hand. You saw him switch hitting, alternating from orthodox back to southpaw.
Back to orthodox.
At times, trying to fend off Christian Mbilli with one hand, just one hand, the right hand. And he was doing a decent job, but ultimately, he lost the points decision. There's no controversy here. Christian won.
There's no question that he won.
He was the fighter coming forward, consistently throwing punches and bunches, landing punches. He was the ring general. Everything that was happening was more or less happening on his terms. He wanted to trade and he got to trade. He wanted to land punches, he landed punches. He put a lot of pressure on Sergey.
Should we be underwhelmed that Christian didn't knock him out?
To that I would ask, who has? Gennady Golovkin couldn't knock him out. Daniel Jacobs couldn't knock him out. Jermall Charlo couldn't knock him out.
Carlos Adames couldn't. Jaime Munguia couldn't. These are not light punchers. These are guys who can punch. And if they couldn't knock out Sergey, I don't think it's that much of an indictment that Christian couldn't knock out Sergey.
Guy's never been knocked out. He's a very good fighter, durable, stubborn. See why he couldn't knock him out.
So I'm not necessarily underwhelmed by Christian's performance, but I'm not over the moon with it either.
This was an acid test, and he passed it, perhaps not with flying colors, but he definitely stayed in character. He was, in this fight, who he usually is in every other fight.
An aggressive mauler, a pressure fighter.
It was an entertaining fight, and Sergey Derevyanchenko did have moments of success, but don't overemphasize it. He had moments of success, pockets.
There's no question who won.
Now attention turns to a potential Mbilli versus Munguia fight. Jaime Munguia, the former junior middleweight champion,
set to make his top-ranked ESPN debut.
I still don't understand that. I still don't understand what is the need, what is the necessity of Jaime Munguia, who, if he still is with Golden Boy Promotions, and Oscar De La Hoya says he is, if he is, then why is he fighting on ESPN?
Against Bazinian.
Remember that a little over a year ago, Oscar De La Hoya would not allow Jaime Munguia to fight Jermall Charlo unless the Zone were able to be involved. You didn't want to let him go to Showtime for Jermall, but you're letting him go to ESPN for this guy?
Why?
The Charlo fight would have been a title fight. The Charlo fight would have been a pay-per-view.
You didn't want to let him go to Showtime for that, but you're letting him go to ESPN for Bazinian? You're letting him go to ESPN for this? Why?
What does this have to do with Christian Mbilli?
The feeling is that if Jaime Munguia takes care of business against Bazinian in a few weeks, they might move to do a fight between Jaime and Christian.
That maybe the reason Jaime's fighting over there is because they're laying the foundations for a Jaime Munguia versus Christian Mbilli fight. Pressure fighter versus pressure fighter. It makes for a hell of a fight, evaluating the two, Jaime Munguia and Christian Mbilli, who share the same base style, but there are some differences. Jaime is a lot more experienced than Christian Mbilli, across more divisions with more fighters.
More fights, more rounds in the bank.
The best fighter that Christian Mbilli has ever fought is Derevyanchenko, a common opponent between him and Jaime, but the best fighter Jaime ever fought is Canelo Alvarez, a fighter who by and large is better than anybody Christian ever fought.
Better boxer, stronger puncher, more proven, durable, just he ticks off on all the boxes.
He's the best guy Jaime ever fought. So experience has to go to Jaime. I would give the edge in experience to Jaime. The edge in speed, I'd give the edge in speed to Christian, the edge in power to Jaime.
I think Christian puts his punches together a bit faster than Jaime does, but I think Jaime lands harder than Christian.
It's hard to say who you can give the edge in toughness, because I've actually seen Jaime hurt more times by more fighters across more divisions than Christian Mbilli. I saw him get flustered with Hennis Dogan, with Takeshi Inoue at 154.
I saw Sergey Derevyanchenko hurt him. I saw Canelo Alvarez knock him down at 168.
And in a very general sense, Jaime is the one who likes to do all the pushing in a fight. But if he's pushed back, you can see he really doesn't like that.
Can Christian Mbilli push him? I think he can. I think he's aggressive enough, explosive enough, persistent enough.
Feels like a 50-50 fight. Feels like a 50 or close to even money between them. Now, I wouldn't be at all surprised if and when the fight gets made that Jaime opens up as a slight, an ever so slight favorite over Jaime Munguia because he is a lot more experienced.
Maybe. I say maybe because we have to see how Jaime looks in that Bazinian fight.
We've gotten to know quite a bit about the both of these fighters, but there's more to it than just what we know right now. Remember, Jaime's gone back to training with Eric Morales, where it looked like he was improving in his two fights with Freddie Roach. He's gone back to Eric. Whether or not that's a good thing?
I don't know.
We also have to see how he looks in a few weeks with Bazinian. Is he going to look good? Is he not going to look good?
I don't know.
Bit early for the conversation, but it is gaining momentum. A potential Munguia versus Mbilli fight.
It'll be entertaining. If nothing else, we know that. It'll be an action fight.
I haven't fought David Benavidez. I can't really say that, but he might have the experience edge over him. He fought way more fights. He fought better opponents. So, he might have the experience and the mental toughness, how you could say, over Morell. I feel like the best thing would be me versus David Benavidez as the main event and Morell versus Grosdick as the co-main, because they both fought the two guys, and just see how they both do against the other guys, about me and Grosdick, but different fighters, and then just that could be like a build-up to their big fight. Have them fight the guys that they fought and just see how they do.
It's not a bad idea from Radavalle, who's coming right off a points decision loss against David Morell in a fight where David didn't look spectacular, didn't necessarily look like a monster, that perhaps the Mexican monster should face Radavalle next, and let David Morell face Alexander Vajdik.
I don't think David Morell would look good in that fight.
Styles make fights. Emphasis on styles. And David Morell's style against Alexander Vajdik's style, yeah, I don't think he'd look good.
He's welcome to prove me wrong, though.
The issue with Radavalle's suggestion that the both of those fighters should fight on the same show, the same card, that let David Morell's fight be the co-main event and let David Benavidez's fight be the main event, is that it implies David is headlining in December. We don't know that.
He might end up the co-main event to Javante's next fight like he did in his last one.
The story now is that David Benavidez is set to return sometime in December. As a headliner, I'm not sure.
In a pay-per-view?
I'm not sure. If the basic idea is to build up a fight between David Benavidez and David Morell by having them fight on the same card, one in the co-main and one in the main.
Can you sell that?
On paper, that sounds like a good idea, but in the real world, especially in the American market, Can you sell that as a pay-per-view? Can you really do that when David's already been on pay-per-view 2 times so far, 2 times, and he didn't sell anything? He didn't end up on the undercard of Gervonta Davis's pay-per-view because of how many pay-per-views he sold. No. If the guy was good for 250, 300, 350,000 pay-per-view buys, they would have had him headline his own show. If he ended up on Gervonta Davis's undercard, it's because of how many pay-per-views he didn't sell on his own. He didn't sell as the headliner.
So while it's not a bad idea that David Benavidez should fight Radovanje Kaladjic to cross-compare performances between him and David Morell, it's not a bad idea. It's not exactly a hot ticket either. Remember, Radovanje is coming off a loss.
Benavidez versus Radovanje should cost you $80 to watch?
As a main event.
That should run you $80? Maybe as part of a bigger show, with a bigger main event, with 2 bigger names in the main event, maybe as a decorative item.
But not as the main event.
There is so much left to the imagination when it comes to the PBC and at what capacity they're operating now. It looks a lot like by year's end, they'll be lucky if they can do 6 shows.
They've already done 3, and all 3 were pay-per-views.
They're doing another one next month. Canelo versus Berlanga, that makes 4. Zoo versus Murtazaliev makes 5.
That's not supposed to be a pay-per-view.
That will be their first non-pay-per-view show they do since having jumped into bed with Amazon Prime, and that would be the 5th card they will have done this year overall. I don't even know if I want to say that they're the ones doing it when really it would be No Limit Promotions.
But that would make 5.
Gervonta Davis's next fight would make 6, which is rumored to be going down sometime in late November. That's what the rumor mill is spinning.
6 cards. 7! If David Benavidez actually does come back in December, I feel like that's subject to change.
The takeaway, whether they end up doing 6 cards or 7 cards this calendar year, well, that is a far cry from the 12 to 14 they said they would do this year. That's a far cry from that.
That's half.
That's only half of what they said they would do when they initially announced this Amazon Prime deal. Half the cards.
That's half.
I don't know that Benavidez versus Kaladjic is a strong enough fight that you could have that in a main event, maybe on an undercard, but not a main event unto itself. Who's gonna buy it?
And who says Samson and David want to roll the dice on this guy?
Now, I don't know who they're gonna end up fighting, but what we do know is they're supposedly targeting the winner of Better Beef versus Bivol, which is going down in October. So, if they're gonna come back in December, I'm going to assume they're gonna tread lightly.
They're gonna be careful.
Careful. Because David didn't look like a monster in his last fight. He didn't look like a monster with Oleksandr Vajdik. He got in with some punches and he never hurt the guy. Didn't so much as hurt his feelings.
Ended up busting both of his hands. That's what they said.
So, I mean, if they are going to fight in December in the interim while they wait for the winner of Better Beef versus Bivol, I don't imagine they're going to take on any risky opponents.
You think Radovanje is risky?
Well, it's not about what I think, it's about what they think. Would they look at Radovanje as a risky opponent since he made David Morell look human? Would they?
I don't know.
Like I said, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to have David Morell and David Benavidez boxing on the same show to build up their own fight. But who says that the Benavidez team wants to build up that fight?
They might not.